This is Pat, pastoral intern at First Congregational Lockport, United Church of Christ, sharing video 2 in a summer's Bible study. This is a unique program as I described in video 1. It doesn't allow the interaction that is important if we were a group Bible study, but it does allow the flexibility and convenience that we might want during the summer, when we want to travel and we have a much more casual schedule. A video program like this, then, is transportable on your smartphone, your tablet, your laptop, and, of course, your Bible is packable. So where have we been since video 1? I'm excited to find out where I've traveled with you as you've read. I'm imagining that we were on a plane, maybe going to an exciting place, or on the beach, or maybe a rustic cabin, or maybe just your patio or porch. Wherever we have been, I enjoyed reading with you. And how has your reading of Moses' story, Infancy to Manhood, gone? Did you complete it? Did you find that you were fascinated or maybe reading even more than the assignment? I hope so. It reminds me of a time that a builder of dollhouses was trying to fit one of her sails into the customer's compact vehicle. She tried every angle and could not get this dollhouse into the customer's car until finally the customer said, "Let me try." With ease, the dollhouse went right in. And the builder said, "How did you do that?" The customer said, "Well, I am an obstetrician." Well, we don't have to be doctors or scholars or even dollhouse builders to read the Bible, and the first time to be amazed. But maybe you didn't have a chance to read yet, and that's okay. We have the whole summer and you can always catch up. So for now, let's highlight some of the first reading of Moses' story, Infancy to Manhood. Now, we need to know about the Hebrews because that's a term that comes up very early on in the story. The Hebrews were a people. They were also a nation known as the Israelites, who became the Jews. So the Hebrews are the Israelites and the Jews, all the same people. Moses was a Hebrew. Now, the Hebrews ended up in Egypt, and they were doing very well. Their population was growing until a particular Egyptian king felt threatened by this foreign population and was determined to control it. Now, the Egyptian kings were known as pharaohs, and this pharaoh issued a mandate that would take care of the Hebrew population. All male baby Hebrew born would be killed, until the Pharaoh found out that the midwives were not carrying out this mandate. So the Pharaoh decided to make another command that all Hebrew male newborns would be drowned in the Nile River. Here opens the Moses story. Moses is a male and a Hebrew born during this terrible mandate. But Moses had a very smart mother. She was able to hide Moses for 3 months. And then when it became impossible to keep a newborn, she decided to make a basket, a very strong waterproof basket, and she floated it in the Nile River Rather ironic, since she floated it in the very river that was meant to end the lives of Hebrew male newborns. The Nile River was sacred to the Egyptians, and the bathing in it was very special, very important. And so the Egyptian princess, with her royal attendants, would go to the Nile to do their bathing and their primping. And it just so happens that that's where Moses' mother placed the basket. Plus, she also put Moses' sister in among the reeds to watch what would happen. So as the royal princess is bathing, along comes a floating basket, and she's going to look inside and find a baby. Well, she takes pity on this baby, and that's all that Moses' sister needed to see. So she comes out of the reeds and approaches the princess and says, "I know of a Hebrew woman who could nurse this baby and take care of it until it's time that you could make it your own." The princess agrees, and Moses goes back to his own mother and his own birth home. So not only is Moses' mother able to feed him nutrition, she feeds him education about what it means to be a Hebrew. The principles, the values. He learns who he is before it's time for him to go to the palace. And Moses' mother is true to her word. At a time, she takes Moses to the royal princess, who adopts Moses, and he is raised as a royal in the palace. This actually is the rest of the story of Moses' infancy. So now flash forward, and Moses is a man. Now he's been raised in the royal family, but he has not forgotten his Hebrew roots. And so as he is out surveying the work of the Hebrew slaves, he realizes the hardship that these people are under. And there's a time when he sees an Egyptian beating fiercely on a Hebrew slave, and Moses intervenes to the point where he kills the Egyptian and buries his body. Now Moses is out again at a time when he's surveying, and he sees two Hebrews fighting each other, and Moses intervenes. But this time the tables turn. The Hebrews are not pleased that one of the royals has entered their business, and they tell Moses, "We can blackmail you. We know about your crime against the Egyptian." So Moses feels he must flee for his life, and he does, to Midian. Midian is way across the wilderness, another land from Egypt. And once there, at a well, Moses notices a gathering of maidens to draw water, and they're being harassed by a group of shepherds. Well, you can guess by now, Moses intervenes. And this time, he's able to protect the maidens, and he finds favor with their father. So Moses settles in to Midian, and he does quite well. He marries one of the maidens, he has a job with his father-in-law, and he has a son. One day, he's far from home doing his job, which is tending sheep, and he notices something more than sheep. It's a bush burning, but not burning up. Now, there's a famous painting which might be a little dark, but perhaps in the background you can see that there is a bush with a flame in the center, but the bush is not burning up. Well, this amazes Moses, and so he has to check it out, and he goes closer until a voice comes from the bush telling him to stop, take off his sandals. He stands on holy ground. The voice is God. This is the God of the Hebrews. And God has heard the Hebrews cry in their horrible conditions under the Egyptians. God has decided to rescue the Hebrews, to free them, and to bring them to a land of their own. But God needs a messenger for this plan. And guess who is called? Moses will be God's messenger. Well, Moses is speechless, literally. And he has all sorts of excuses. He cannot possibly be God's messenger. For one thing, he's not a speaker. He stutters. He gets tongue-tied. He could never convey a message. And he has another excuse. He really doesn't know God. How can he go to the people and give God's message if he doesn't even know God's name? God has all of this covered. For one, God will call Aaron. Aaron is Moses' older brother, and he can speak rather well. So God can tell Moses what it is to say, and Moses can convey it to Aaron to speak it out loud. And when it comes to God's name, Moses is to tell the people he is being sent by I Am. I Am has sent me. Now, I Am is more of an action than a name of identity. It signals what God has done and what God will do. So God has everything covered, but he also gives Moses some magical signs, just in case he needs a little drama to make the message known. So, for one, he tells Moses, take your staff, your shepherd's staff, and throw it to the ground. Moses takes his staff, throws it down. It becomes a snake. God says, pick up the snake. Moses reaches down, picks up the snake. It's his shepherd's staff in his hand. So Moses and Aaron go to the people, to the Hebrews. They gather the elders, and he and Aaron go to the Pharaoh to make God's request that the Hebrew slaves are freed for 3 days to go into the wilderness to worship their God. Pharaoh refuses. For one thing, the Pharaoh is considered in Egypt a god. And so he is not going to be challenged by another god. Plus, this challenge makes him very upset to the point where he's going to take it out on the Hebrew slaves. So now the Hebrews are mad at Moses for making things worse. But God sends Aaron and Moses back again, and he says, use your drama. Use some of your magical signs, which they do. And even Pharaoh's sorcerers can't compete with the kinds of signs and magic that Moses is doing. but the Pharaoh still refuses. The Pharaoh's heart hardens. Now, this is a phrase that we will read over and over again in this story. The Pharaoh's heart hardens. So here we leave Moses and Aaron at this juncture in the story. And they're not very successful. They've met with a very arrogant Pharaoh refusing to obey. And they have resistance on every front. But they have one more thing in their favor. God is with them. What do you think of the story so far? Has it piqued your interest? Stay tuned because it gets even better. Or keep reading. The reading that you do might be helpful to jot down where you are when you read and what circumstances you are under as you read. You might note questions or observations or maybe even revelations that you're getting. Or better yet, you might want to mark these notes in your Bible. Yes, I'm advocating that you mark the Bible. Remember, the Bible is God's gift to us. It's a library for us. And you can make it your own. You can underline, you can mark in the margins, you can make it your own personal volume. And I encourage you to do that. But before we read on, I thought maybe we'd do a little sift and lift. That means we go back through the story and we sift what might be something that caught our notice and we lift it up. Let me make just a few suggestions. Some things that I've sifted. Like I went back to where Moses is inadequate. Moses feels inadequate. And I lifted that up because all of us have felt inadequate. When you lift it up, can you recall a time when maybe you felt inadequate? Someone made you feel inadequate? Another sift that I lifted was about Moses' schooling. When you think about it, Moses was homeschooled twice. Once in his birth home and then in the palace. Once in the palace, he probably received the best education that any Egyptian could get in his time. What has been your schooling? Who have been your teachers? What values, principles, knowledge do you have from your schooling? One more sift. I lifted up Moses' being called by God. Have you ever felt called? Maybe nudged, maybe just tapped on the shoulder. How did you respond? For me, this was something I lift up to think about. Well, our time is ending, and I still need to give you the next reading, the Moses story called to lead. It will be slightly more challenging because there are quite a few more passages, but I know you're up to it. We will continue in the same book, the book of Exodus, but then you're going to jump just a couple more books to Numbers. There's a couple of chapters in Numbers. So you might want to get a pen and paper, or maybe at the beginning of your Bible, you might want to jot down all of these passages. And thank goodness this is video, because you can always listen to this list again. In Exodus, I will read the chapters to you, and it might be easier for you to write them down. And then remember, the verses are also numbered, and I will read the verses once you've got the chapters down. So in Exodus, you're going to list chapters 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 19, 24, 32, and 34. Now go back to the beginning, and these are the verses in chapter 12, 33 to 42, in 13, 17 to 22, in 14, 5 to 16, in 15, 22 to 27, in 16, 1 through 30, in 17, 1 through 7, in 19, 1 through 6, in 24, 12 through 18, in 32, 1 through 9, and in 34, 1 through 10. And to complete our reading, remember this completes our read stage. In Numbers, not too bad. List your chapters. Your chapters are 12, 13, and 14. And now go back to the beginning of your list, and here are your verses. Chapter 12, 1 through 8. Chapter 13, 2 sets, 1 through 3, 25 through 33. Chapter 14, 20 through 25. I know that seems like a lot of passages and a lot of moving through the Bible, but this is a very long story, and so I want to carve out a good taste for our summer reading. Of course, we will highlight the chapters again together in video 3. And we will begin the next stage. We will go from read to interpret. I hope you continue to have a great summer. Safe travels. I look forward to the time when we can be together again and I can find out where we've been and how our reading has gone. Until then, God bless.